This is part 2 of chapter 1 and 2, discussion of Ray Fran's book, Crisis of Conscience. Ray goes on to discuss the pain that is caused by religious dogmatism, legalism, and authoritarianism of the Watchtower organization. He relates to the readers the types of people that face this crisis of conscience, and he lists them as persons who were prominent members of the Witness International headquarters, men who were traveling superintendents, elders, women who spent long years in missionary service and evangelistic work. And you have to ask yourself why people like that would give up everything, many of them their family, their whole lives. What do these people know? What makes them come to this point in their lives where they can no longer keep silent? He tells the story of Ed Dunlap. He's a man who gave his whole life in the service of the Watchtower Society, only to be thrown out for expressing a different viewpoint in private conversations. How could this man threaten an organization just from his own personal conversations? The only answer to that is the organization is a high control group. A group like this must maintain control over all aspects of their members' lives, even their private conversations. Ray remarks how the Watchtower organization has been known as a legal champion of free speech. They fought court battles for the rights to speak about their beliefs publicly, and yet they deny that freedom to 7 million people, even in the most private settings. And I know this for a fact because I, as one of Jehovah's Witnesses, am not personally free to speak the truth in my heart to my own children in my own home. We get a brief account of Raymond's life, and he doesn't want to focus on his life, but he knows that his readers need to know where he's coming from. His life was saturated with Watchtower experience. Few, even in the governing body, could claim to have led such a life heavy with Watchtower experience. He and his wife followed the Watchtower's encouragement and sacrificed parenthood in order to fully preach. They faced violence, illness, poverty in these foreign countries while they were missionaries. When he got to Bethel, he worked in the writing department. He researched for the Aid to Bible Understanding. And he does relate some really interesting information about his research in that book. You'll find it interesting when he talks about the date 607. He comments about the Proclaimer's book, which is a slanted history of the Watchtower Society. He speaks of the Proclaimer's book. He says, it either manifests ignorance on the part of the writer or writers of the material as to how matters actually developed. It's designed to elevate the role of a group of men in the view of its membership. He relates that among Jehovah's Witnesses, very few have a clear idea as to how the central part of the organization functions. They really don't know what goes on with the governing body, and I know that for a fact. I was in the organization a long time, and I knew a lot of people, and we all had some vague understanding that the governing body would meet, discuss a matter, pray about it, and somehow the Holy Spirit would just give them the answer. But Ray goes on to say that all of those meetings are cloaked in secrecy. The governing body always meets in closed sessions. And if you don't think there's anything wrong with a society being so secret about their inner workings, just Google secret societies. That idea is rarely associated with an honest organization. He talks about the secretive financial records. We always thought we had the financial records in the yearbook, and yet most witnesses I know have no idea what the society's income or investments really are. They have no idea about the society's land development companies, about all the money and land and jewelry, insurance, so much money that comes to them on a regular basis. He says that after he resigned as a member of the governing body in 1980, he was hounded by the media for information about the Watchtower, and he resisted that for 2 years, he says. But what happened in those 2 years, not merely as regards himself, but as regards others, caused him to reassess that position of silence. During those 2 years, he saw people who were in great pain, with their families torn from them and their reputation destroyed. He says of those people, no allowance was made for the possibility that any of them acted out of sincerity, love, of truth, or integrity to God. He says, what must it mean to a mother who has seen her baby daughter come forth from her own body, cared for it through illness in the formative years, and feeling her disappointments and sadness? What must it mean to that mother to have her daughter torn from her? He goes on to say that what's presented in his book isn't intended to be some kind of expose. He says, but it is true that some things were shocking in the book, but they're not presented for shock value. And believe me, any witness who reads Crisis of Conscience will be shocked at the information. It's amazing how you're reading through the book and you know he's not lying, and yet you need to see the documentation that he supplies because it is so shocking. Ray speaks of those of us that face serious crises of conscience and how we do so with uncertainty and a sense of confusion and anguish and guilt. He says, my hope is that what is presented in this book may be of help, and I feel it is owed to them. What Ray meant by that statement, I feel it is owed to them, those who are confused and guilt-ridden for questioning the Watchtower, I can't say. But I do know that those who have dedicated their lives to support the Watchtower's teachings and have come to a point where the flood of doubts threatens to wash away their faith, they deserve to know the truth. And the Watchtower organization owes them that much.